The crystal champagne flutes clinked in a delicate chorus as my stepsister, Chloe, raised her glass to the adoring crowd. She stood on a makeshift stage in the center of a grand ballroom, rented for this one extravagant night. Her designer gown shimmered under the chandeliers, a dress that cost more than my first 2 years of college tuition combined. She smiled, a perfect, practiced smile, soaking in the applause from the city's elite. They were all here to celebrate her, the brilliant tech prodigy, the self-made entrepreneur who had taken the digital world by storm. Her company, Vance Innovations, was the talk of the town. They had no idea they were celebrating a phantom, a fraud. Her entire life, this lavish party, the respect she commanded, it was all built on a lie. They toasted her success, showering her with praise for her genius and hard work. But every bit of that success was mine. Every line of code, every business plan, every late night fueled by coffee and ambition, it belonged to me. They thought her name was Amelia Vance, but that's my name, and she had stolen it, along with everything else. You might be wondering why I let her live my life for 3 whole years. Why did I stand by and watch as she took credit for my work, spent my money, and wore my identity like a costume? Because the only thing more satisfying than stopping a thief is letting them think they've gotten away with it, right before you take everything back, with interest. Tonight wasn't just her party. It was a trap I had carefully set, and she had walked right into it. The police were already waiting outside. How does a sister steal another's entire existence? And how do you prepare the perfect revenge? To understand that, we have to go back to the beginning, to the day my life was first fractured. It started not with a dramatic theft, but with a quiet betrayal in the house I used to call home. My father sat my 10-year-old self down on the living room sofa, the air thick with the scent of my late mother's favorite potpourri, and told me he was getting remarried. He said I was going to have a new mother and a new sister. He promised me we would be a happy family. That was the first of many broken promises. The woman he married, Karen, and her daughter Chloe, didn't want a family. They wanted an upgrade, and I was the price of admission. From the moment they moved in, my home became a house of mirrors, where my own reflection began to fade. From day one, the dynamic was clear. Chloe was the sun, and I was a distant planet, expected to orbit her quietly without blocking her light. My father, caught in the gravitational pull of his new wife, simply averted his eyes. Karen, my stepmother, wasted no time in remodeling the house, not just with new furniture, but with new rules. Her rules. Suddenly, my chores multiplied. I was responsible for my laundry, Chloe's laundry, the dishes, and keeping the common areas spotless. Chloe's only responsibility was to enjoy her childhood. If I complained, Karen would sigh dramatically and say, "Chloe is sensitive, Amelia. These things are too stressful for her." My father would just nod, adding, "Don't cause trouble, sweetie." This pattern bled into every corner of our lives. My straight A's were met with a brief, "That's nice," before the conversation immediately shifted to how Chloe had made a new friend on the cheerleading squad. When I won the state-level coding competition in 10th grade, my stepmother said my trophy was too pointy and might be a hazard on the mantelpiece. Meanwhile, when Chloe managed to get a C+ in algebra after 3 tutors, they took her out for a celebratory steak dinner. I was told to stay home and finish my homework. I wasn't just being ignored, my existence was being systematically devalued. I was the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who didn't make waves. I was useful, like a sturdy piece of furniture. Chloe was decorative. The worst part was how Chloe reveled in it. She understood her power and wielded it with a casual cruelty. She would borrow my clothes and return them stained. She'd take my textbooks right before a major exam, claiming she'd forgotten hers. Each time, my father would plead for peace. "Just let it go, Amelia. It's not worth fighting over." He was wrong. It was worth fighting over. They weren't just taking my sweaters and my books. They were taking pieces of my standing, my voice, my right to exist on equal terms in my own home. They were teaching me that my needs were irrelevant and that her wants were paramount. It was a slow, deliberate erosion of my identity. And all I could do was retreat further into my own world, the world of my computer, of code and logic, where rules were fair and outcomes were predictable. I thought it was my escape. In reality, it was where I was forging the very thing she would later decide to steal. The years passed, and the pattern solidified into a miserable routine. I graduated high school with honors and a full scholarship to the local university for computer science. My father drove me to my dorm, and his parting words were, "Try to call Chloe. She's having a tough time." Chloe had dropped out of community college after one semester, declaring it uninspiring. While I spent my nights in the library, learning programming languages and network architecture, she spent her time hopping between retail jobs she'd quit after a few weeks, complaining that the work was beneath her. She moved back home, living rent-free, her days a blur of social media and her mother's endless coddling. My escape was my work. In my cramped dorm room, I wasn't the forgotten stepdaughter. I was a creator. I began developing an intuitive design platform, a tool that could help small businesses create professional-grade marketing materials without needing a graphic designer. It was my passion, my obsession, my ticket out. I poured every spare moment into it, writing thousands of lines of code, designing the user interface, and building a comprehensive business plan. I called it Vance Innovations, using my mother's maiden name. It was a piece of her legacy, and it was going to be my future. During a summer break back home, Chloe started showing a disturbing interest in my work. She'd linger in the doorway of my room, watching me code. "So is that gonna make you rich?" she'd ask, her tone dripping with a mixture of disdain and envy. My stepmother would encourage this. "You should teach Chloe some of that computer stuff, Amelia. It's not fair that you keep it all to yourself." The idea was absurd. I had spent years learning, practicing, and failing. Chloe wanted the results without the work. She didn't see the effort. She only saw a potential lottery ticket she hadn't bought. The final piece of the trap was laid without my knowledge. For my 21st birthday, my father gave me a savings bond my mother had bought for me when I was born. It had matured to about $10,000. It was the only significant thing I had ever received from my mother's side of the family. I excitedly told my father I was going to cash it and use it as seed money to officially incorporate my company and move to the city to launch it. I filled out the incorporation paperwork and the application for a business bank account, leaving the folder on my desk overnight. The next morning, the folder was gone. When I asked my family, they all feigned ignorance. Chloe just smirked. "You're so disorganized, Amelia. You probably lost it." A week later, I went away for a weekend-long hackathon competition. It was the opportunity they had been waiting for. I returned from the hackathon feeling victorious. I had won first place, and a major tech firm had offered me an internship on the spot. For the first time, I felt like my future was truly in my hands. I walked into the house, ready to pack my bags and leave for good, but a strange silence greeted me. I went up to my room, and my blood ran cold. The door was ajar. My laptop was on, but the screen was blank, displaying a fresh OS installation screen. Everything was gone. My code, my designs, my notes, all wiped clean. I tore through my desk drawers. The folder with my incorporation papers was there, but it was empty. My birth certificate, my social security card, the savings bond from my mother, all of it had vanished. I stormed downstairs. Chloe, Karen, and my father were sitting at the kitchen table as if nothing had happened. "Where is it?" I demanded, my voice shaking with a rage I had never felt before. "Where is my stuff?" Chloe looked up from her phone, a lazy, entitled smile on her face. "I'm just borrowing it," she said. "You're so bad at the whole business thing, Amelia. You have no personality. I'm going to make us famous. You should be thanking me." My stepmother immediately jumped to her defense. Don't you dare use that tone with your sister. She sees an opportunity, something you would have just wasted. We've given you everything, and you've been so selfish, hoarding your little project. I ignored them. My eyes were locked on my father. He was my last hope, the final thread of the family I thought I had. Dad? I whispered, my voice breaking. Are you going to let her do this? He finally looked up, his face a mask of weary resignation. Amelia, let's be reasonable, he said softly. Chloe, she needs a win. You're brilliant. You can start over. It's just an idea. You can make another one. That was it. That was the moment my heart truly broke. It wasn't just an idea. It was my name, my money, my future, my identity. And he was handing it to her on a silver platter because it was easier than standing up for me. They told me to leave. Karen said my negative energy was upsetting Chloe. As I stood on the porch with my backpack, the only life I had left, Chloe came to the door. By the way, she said, holding up my social security card, I've already moved to the city. I have a great new apartment, under my new name, of course. She winked. Amelia Vance sounds so much more professional, don't you think? I was no longer Amelia Vance. I was nobody, with nothing, standing on the curb as they closed the door on my entire life. The first few months were a blur of desperation. I was a ghost. Without an ID, I couldn't get a proper job, rent an apartment, or even open a bank account. I bounced between homeless shelters and the couches of a few college acquaintances, but pity has an expiration date. I took under-the-table jobs, washing dishes in greasy restaurant kitchens for cash, my hands raw and my spirit eroded. All the while, my other self, my stolen self, was thriving. I'd see articles pop up on my phone, which was my only real possession. Amelia Vance, the new face of tech. Vance Innovations secures first-round funding. It was Chloe's smiling, smug face next to my name, my company, my dream. She was giving interviews, stumbling through technical explanations with buzzwords she barely understood, describing my all-nighters in the university library as her own war stories. The world was celebrating a lie, and the real Amelia Vance was surviving on leftover scraps. The injustice was so profound, it felt like a physical weight, crushing the air from my lungs. One night, huddled in a 24-hour laundromat for warmth, I watched a video of her on a business news channel. The host asked her what inspired the core algorithm of the platform. Chloe just giggled and said, "It just, came to me in a flash of inspiration. I guess I'm just a natural." That was it. That was the moment the sadness shattered and was replaced by something hard and cold. Fury. A calm, clean, diamond-hard fury. I wasn't just going to get my life back. I was going to dismantle hers, piece by fraudulent piece. They thought I was weak. They thought I would crumble and disappear. They had counted on me being the victim forever. That was the flaw in their plan. They had stolen my past and my present, but they had underestimated my future. The next morning, I stopped surviving and started planning. My first battle wasn't with Chloe, it was with the system. I spent weeks navigating a bureaucratic maze, using my university records, old emails, and a sworn affidavit from a sympathetic professor to piece my legal identity back together. It was a slow, grueling process. Finally, the day came when I held a new driver's license and a new social security card in my hand. They bore my name, Amelia Vance, the real one. I looked at my own face on the plastic card, and I didn't see a victim. I saw a strategist. I got a stable job as a data entry clerk, a position that required no public profile. I lived in the cheapest room I could find, saving every single penny. I became a creature of discipline and patience. Every night I wasn't just resting. I was studying my enemy. I archived every article, every interview, every social media post from the fake Amelia Vance. Every lie she told was another brick in the prison I was building for her. For the next 2 years, I lived a double life. By day, I was the quiet data entry clerk, invisible and unremarkable. But by night, I was Ava. Ava was my professional pseudonym, a faceless freelance developer who quickly built a reputation in online tech circles for being brilliant, fast, and ruthlessly efficient. While Chloe was busy posing for magazine articles as Amelia Vance, Ava was building a portfolio of cutting-edge work for clients around the world. I wasn't just reclaiming my skills, I was sharpening them into a weapon. I never tried to rebuild my old platform. That would have been an admission that she had taken the best of me. Instead, I started working on something far more advanced, a sophisticated security protocol designed to protect user data on platforms just like the one she had stolen. The irony was delicious. I would build the lock for the very door she had kicked down. My new project, which I codenamed Cerberus, was leaner, faster, and more secure than anything on the market. It was the work of a master, not a novice. All the while, I was my own private investigator. I followed the public trail of Vance Innovations, and it told a story of incompetence. Chloe didn't know how to innovate, only how to spend. She burned through the initial $10,000 bond and the first round of seed funding at an alarming rate. The money went to a lavish corner office, a leased luxury sports car, and a personal stylist. The company itself was stagnating. The codebase, my original elegant design, was now a bloated mess, patched together by expensive consultants who were bleeding her dry. She was a terrible businesswoman playing dress-up in a CEO's chair. My quiet life as Ava was the complete opposite. I was profitable from month one. My reputation grew, and so did my income. I moved from my dingy room to a clean, minimalist apartment. I saved relentlessly, not for a fancy car, but for a war chest. My revenge wouldn't be cheap. I would need lawyers. I would need to be prepared for every contingency. As I watched Chloe's company begin to financially hemorrhage, I knew my moment was coming. The final nail in her coffin was an announcement I saw on a society blog. Vance Innovations was hosting a massive anniversary gala. The invitation promised a celebration of 3 years of success and a special announcement to lure in a second, much larger round of investors. It was perfect. She was gathering all of her victims and accomplices into one room for me. The stage wasn't just set. She was decorating it for her own execution. With the date of the gala set, my plan moved into its final, irreversible phase. This was no longer about emotion. It was about logistics. My first stop was the office of the sharpest intellectual property lawyer in the state. I walked in not as a victim, but as a client with an airtight case. On his polished mahogany table, I laid out 3 years of meticulously organized evidence, time-stamped code repositories from my university server, original design documents, financial analysis of Vance Innovations' public filings, and a complete archive of every lie Chloe had told the press under my name. The lawyer leaned back in his chair, a slow grin spreading across his face. "Ms. Vance," he said, "this isn't just a lawsuit. This is a public hanging." Together, we prepared the ammunition. We compiled a comprehensive report for the police, detailing felony identity theft, wire fraud, and grand larceny. A second, equally detailed report was prepared for the IRS, highlighting the blatant tax evasion as Chloe funneled company money into her lavish personal life. My lawyer made the calls, briefing the authorities and ensuring they would be ready to act on my signal. Justice wouldn't just be served, it would be swift and overwhelming. Then came the personal touch. I wanted my family to have a front row seat. I had a formal invitation printed on the finest cardstock, messengered to my father and Karen. It offered them 2 VIP seats at the gala, reserved under the name of a special benefactor. I knew their vanity and their desire to bask in Chloe's reflected glory would be too strong to resist. They would be there to witness the triumph, never suspecting it would be mine. not hers. For my own part, I prepared a simple USB drive. It contained a 5-minute presentation. It was a cold, factual timeline. It showed screenshots of my original work, dated years before the company was formed. It showed the financial records of the stolen savings bond. It showed side-by-side comparisons of my original business plan and the one Chloe had filed. It was the truth, condensed into a weapon. On the evening of the party, a profound calm settled over me. There was no anger, no anxiety, only a quiet focus. I wasn't going there to scream or cry. I was going there to present a verdict that had been decided long ago. I didn't choose a gown or a flashy dress. I chose a sleek, dark pantsuit. It was the armor of a professional, not the costume of a guest. I put the USB drive in my pocket, a single, potent bullet in its chamber. I walked out of my apartment, the one I had earned with my own work and my real name, and hailed a cab. The destination I gave the driver was the beginning of my end and the end of her beginning. The ballroom glittered with stolen money. An ice sculpture of the Vance Innovations logo was melting slowly near a tower of champagne glasses. The air was thick with expensive perfume and self-congratulation. I slipped in through a side entrance, a ghost at the feast, and stood at the back of the room. I saw them immediately. My father, looking prouder than I had ever seen him, stood with Karen, who was showing off a new diamond bracelet to a circle of fawning guests. They were basking in a success they had helped steal, their faces alight with smug satisfaction. And on the stage, Chloe was radiant, the star of her own fabricated universe. She tapped the microphone, and a hush fell over the room. "I just want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate with me," she began, her voice smooth and practiced. "When I started this journey 3 years ago, it was just a dream, a little idea I had. It took so much hard work, so many sleepless nights. This was my cue. While all eyes were on her, I made my way silently along the wall to the audio-visual station, manned by a young technician. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. I held out the USB drive. "There's been a last-minute addition to the program," I said, my tone low and firm. "The CEO wants this played immediately." He saw the authority in my eyes, not the name on my face, and did as he was told. He nodded, confused but compliant, and inserted the drive. The massive screens behind Chloe, which had been displaying her company logo, flickered and went dark. The room fell silent. Then my presentation began. The title appeared in stark white letters against a black background. The True Story of Vance Innovations. A photo of my original handwritten notes from my college dorm room appeared, dated 2019. Then a scan of my mother's savings bond, followed by the bank statement showing the $10,000 withdrawal from an ATM in the city Chloe had moved to 1 day after I had left for my hackathon. A slide showed my original incorporation papers next to the ones Chloe had filed, with my forged signature clearly visible. The final slide showed a photo of me holding my new, hard-won driver's license. The lights came up. 200 pairs of eyes swiveled from the screen to a pale, horrified Chloe, and then to me, as I calmly walked to the stage and took the second microphone. "Hello, Chloe," I said, my voice echoing through the stunned silence. "For those of you who don't know me, my name is Amelia Vance, the real one, and I've come to reclaim what's mine." Chloe's face crumpled. She started stammering, screaming that I was crazy, a liar, that she didn't know who I was. But right on cue, as if summoned by the truth itself, the main doors of the ballroom swung open. 2 uniformed police officers and 2 detectives in suits strode in, followed by my lawyer. They ignored the gasping crowd. Their path was direct, their focus singular. They were walking straight towards the stage, straight towards Chloe. The click of the handcuffs fastening around Chloe's wrists echoed through the ballroom. All the fight, the arrogance, and the bravado drained out of her at once. She started to sob, not tears of remorse, but of pure, selfish terror. "It's a mistake," she whimpered at the detectives. She's lying. She's always been jealous of me. But her words were hollow, pathetic. The evidence was still glowing on the screens behind her, a digital tombstone for her fake life. My stepmother, Karen, lunged forward, her face a contorted mask of rage. "You monster!" she shrieked at me. "How could you do this to your own sister?" Before she could get any closer, my lawyer stepped in her path. "Ma'am," he said, his voice dangerously calm, "I strongly advise you to stop talking. You and your husband are persons of interest in a federal fraud investigation. You will be contacted shortly." Karen froze, her mouth agape. The color drained from her face. I finally looked at my father. He stood motionless, his rented tuxedo seeming to swallow his shrunken frame. He looked old, defeated, and utterly broken. He met my gaze, his eyes pleading for something, forgiveness, understanding, a rewrite of the last decade. I gave him nothing. I just held his gaze for a moment, then turned away, a final silent dismissal of the man who chose to be a spectator in his own daughter's destruction. The crowd of guests, who moments before were Chloe's biggest fans, began to melt away, not wanting to be associated with the unfolding scandal. The legal process was swift. The evidence I had gathered was so overwhelming that Chloe's only option was to take a plea bargain. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison for grand larceny, identity theft, and multiple counts of fraud. Vance Innovations was dissolved, its assets frozen. In the civil suit that followed, the court awarded me all remaining assets and a significant sum in damages. My father and Karen, facing their own charges, sold their house to pay the legal fees and fines. They were socially and financially ruined, left with nothing but the shame of what they had enabled. I didn't want the tainted shell of Vance Innovations. I let the lawyers liquidate it. Instead, I formally launched Cerberus Security. The story of the party, the theft, and my revenge became a local legend in the tech community. The name Ava, the faceless genius coder, merged with Amelia Vance, the resilient founder. Investors who had been fooled by Chloe now saw me as the real thing, a creator who had not only built a superior product, but had also executed a flawless, multi-year strategy to reclaim her life. They didn't just offer me money, they offered me respect. My name was finally my own, and it was worth more than I had ever imagined. I had not just taken my life back, I had built a better one from the ashes of their betrayal.